Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and all you lovely chaotic neutrals, to this new episode of Dragons and Diatribes. I'm Ed, one of your co-hosts here, joined by Jared and Ethan, as always. Say hi, guys.
What's up, everybody?
How's it going? Good to be here. Let's do it. Rock and roll.
And I think this episode we're just going to continue talking about some of the 5.5 stuff. Going to return to Divine and Primal Magic later on, which we're excited to talk about. But this stuff's hot off the press relatively, I guess, a couple of weeks. And though the player's handbook's going to be rolling out, I think a month from tomorrow, the new one. So
I'm actually converting all of my games that I'm in currently into the new 5.5 once it comes out. Super excited.
It's a strict buff to my fighter. Like they can cast this spell this many times. They can cast this spell this many times. And it's like if you're running a game, with maybe the exception of the Lich, where it's like, okay, this is a baddie for quite a few sessions. It's like, okay, you're going to get through 5 or 6 spells maybe. So I always get rid of that, and I just give them certain spells they can cast at will that are thematic for bad guys. It's like this person can cast counterspell at will. This person can cast shield at will. This person can cast this at will. Just because I think it makes it a lot easier and smoother, and it's like that's what they would have been doing anyway. Just hones it, and I'm hoping they lean more in that direction. With the spells, it seems like monsters are going to be getting spells off a lot more because, here's a new spell, a big spell change. The counter spell nerf. Counterspell got a big nerf. I don't know if you guys saw this, but
no, I haven't looked at the spells a whole lot. I've been mostly looking at classes. So what's the counterspell nerf?
So I like this. Well, it sucks, but I also really like it because it's like if you get some bad guys, right, and it's usually one villain, and the party's there, and then action economy is already heavily favoring the players. And then your big bad drops a 9th level spell, and someone's like, I'm going to counter it at 5th level and rolls well. It's like there's nothing, short of, even legendary resistance doesn't affect that because it's, the player rolling to hit. So it just totally nukes the bad guy's entire turn. What it is now, so there's no way to upcast it. You cast it at 3rd level, 4th level, it's going to be the same. And it procs a constitution saving throw from the creature against your spell save DC to power through it or not. So which I think
legendary resistance would work, but it would burn that action economy from
exactly. But there's still a chance to, and I think it still works really well. In the situation where it's like you're fighting, a couple of mages or whatever, because it's not, they won't have legendary resistance, and it's not as punishing if one of them loses a turn. But I kind of like that.
The issue is you can't counterspell a counterspell anymore, can you?
You could use your reaction to counter their counterspell. Then they
would have to roll.
They'd have to make a con save to keep their counterspell going. It makes it a saving throw, which I think makes more sense, frankly, than how it was set up before. If we're talking like sort of the logic of Magic and what is a save versus an attack roll, like counterspell being basically an attack roll against the spell's level never made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, because you're technically disrupting their spell casting, so it would be on them to try to maintain concentration on what they're doing.
Yeah. It's like a concentration check is exactly what it is. It's a preemptive concentration check against a set DC, which I think is great. It also, I think what it does is it drops counterspells power enough that you can consider other spells in its place, which obviously, because before it's like there's no reason to not take counterspell. Like it's unoptimal to not. So I like that. Speaking of optimal spells, I'm super excited for the new True Strike. Because what it is now, Jared, is instead of what it used to be was probably the worst spell in the game. One of the
worst, yeah.
Either that or find traps.
Find traps is the exact same, unfortunately. They did not
they just
it.
as
Find
they
traps is probably now the worst spell in the game.
good as it should be, to be honest. Let that spell rot and die.
But True Strike,
I'm
what
over
it
that
is,
one.
It used to be you use your action
God.
to begin concentrating, and the next attack roll you make against a creature has advantage.
Yep.
Which for people doing math, that's 2 d20 rolls to maybe hit once when you could just roll on this turn and roll on the next turn and maybe hit twice.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's
yes.
it's
It like the math literally told you it was inept. The math taught you it was trash, and everyone's still.
What it is
and
now.
if you're up against someone and you're getting hit, arguably every turn, you have to make a concentration check every time to.
Especially if you're getting hit multiple times, which is what all. So True Strike was only for like certain classes too, like the melee classes would take it, and then they would get hit 6 different times and have to maintain concentration every time in one round. And it was
correct, Jared. Nobody would take it.
Well, yeah, but yes, correct. But if you did have it, it was like, oh, I'm the tank. I'm the paladin with the 20 AC shield. It's like, all right, here's 3 Eldritch Blasts. Oh no, I failed the 3rd save. Oh, True Strike gone. Yeah. Bye-bye.
It's ass.
Yeah.
But what it is now.
Terrible.
So it takes an action. It's an action to cast.
Okay.
And it's more similar to like a booming blade or whatever. It's like as part of casting the spell, you make an attack with a weapon. And the weapon attack uses your spell casting modifier instead of your physical ability. So basically, if you're a wizard, you can cast True Strike to attack using your intelligence modifier instead of your strength or dexterity, which is epic. And
with your proficiency?
Yeah.
Oh.
As long as
you proficiency with the weapon. So
right. Okay. Right.
So what you dwarf wizards out there?
So, what I'm really excited for this enabling, what I'm most interested in playing with the True Strike build is doing a full-on intelligence build Arcane Trickster Rogue who has True Strike packed so they can use, because rogues only get 1 attack anyway, so you're not losing out on anything. So you can you could just ubercharge your intelligence without really worrying about dexterity, and then just lean in really hard into your spells and use True Strike for the damage.
Same with like an Eldritch Knight fighter.
Especially with the buff that allows them to cast a cantrip in place, because they get the cantrip and then you get an additional attack as well. It would be with your strength, but it's still going to be. Yeah, I'm excited for True Strike because I think there's also some builds that people have been already.
Is it only for the 1 strike you do now? Then
that's a good question.
Is it still up for the minute?
I don't know if it's for the turn or the next attack. I don't know.
Gotcha.
I'd need to check.
Well, it was up to a minute, wasn't it? The original one.
Because if it's for the turn, that'd be great for an Eldritch Knight, because then you could use it for all your attacks.
Precisely. The other thing that people have been talking about is what they think is going to be a real strong build is so Valor Bard. They get 2 attacks. They also get the buff with the cantrip. And with the new magical secrets, they have access to the new Conjure Elementals, which, if you guys don't know, the Conjure spells are getting changed. They previously, like Conjure Beast was like where you could summon 8 wolves at level 5.
That one was so dumb.
I hated that spell as a DM. It's just so not fun. And then some player
Conjurers
just
are hard to play because I always feel bad for the DM. Because I'm like, you have to roll a bunch, then you have to have the stats, and it's like it makes combat more cumbersome.
It doubles
and it's super
combat
cool,
time.
and I wish that you could streamline it a little bit, because being a conjurer would be super cool, but I just never play one because it's just a pain in the ass.
So what they've gotten now, in place of the conjure, the summon spells still exist, which are what was in Tasha's. That's where you have a set stat block and you get to summon 1 single creature. I think that's fine, and I think that's the way to do summoners. Like, because adding
like the Conjure Elemental or whatever it is.
It's just like
those ones.
So they're summon celestial, summon fey, summon fiend, summon
Shadow Spawn.
aberration.
Yeah.
Well, it's summon aberration now is the new name for the shadow spawn one.
Oh, it's an aberration. Oh, okay.
So it's actually even better because summon aberration. It has basically you get to either summon a beholder, a mind flayer, or something else, and so I mean they're much weaker versions, but it's like that's the thematic thing. So they each have kind of bonuses, and the shadow spawn is just the mind flayer one. The psychic damage and some extra stuff. But conjure element. So the conjure spells though, so the summon spells are still summon one creature of that type with a set stat block. The conjure spells are now like passive buffs, or not, like you concentrate on them, I think. But like conjure elementals now, what it is, it's like every time you hit with a weapon attack, you deal an extra 2d8 of whatever elemental type of damage.
Oh.
So like basically, because bards get access to the wizard spell list at level 10, you can run a valor bard who's just doing that double spell, double fisting swords, and if you are using light weapons, right, that's 3 attacks. That spell alone is an additional 6d8 damage a turn if you're hitting all your attacks.
That's crazy.
So that's one of the theory builds I've seen with and True Strike implemented into this, allowing the bard to lean more heavily into the charisma without worrying about dex to keep themselves so you can just ubercharge your constitution to keep your concentrations up, and so I'm super stoked for that. I'm trying to think of some of the other spells I saw that I really liked. There's a couple of new ones that they've added in. So sorcerers have a unique cantrip now that is just for them. It's a D8 of damage, but you get to pick. It's like a mini chromatic orb. So you pick what type of damage it is. And
so basically what you're saying is the new slogan for sorcerers is I'm my own patron.
Yeah.
But it's really like a warlock.
And they also get and the other thing is that they have the chance to like chain the damage, because if you land, I think what it is, like if you roll an 8 on the damage dice, it jumps. So it's a pretty cool cantrip.
That's cool.
For sorcerers. And it's cool because it becomes more likely as you level up that you're going to have it jump because you're rolling more dice with the cantrip. Because it's like if any of them land on the 8, it can jump once. Cool. So if you're rolling 2d8 versus 3 versus 4, you're more and more likely. So mathematically speaking, at high enough level, every other turn, by average, it should be jumping.
That's cool.
Huh. I like that. What does that stem from though? Why'd they decide they need to choose their damage type? As if sorcerers aren't keen on switching things anyways.
Well, because sorcerers didn't have any unique cantrips, and that's another thing they've done is they've given a lot of the classes unique cantrips. So, Vicious Mockery's been buffed for the bard. The damage was moved up to a D6, and I think there's an additional bonus to it. I'm forgetting it. So, that's their spell. This is the sorcerer's spell. Warlocks have Eldritch Blast. And then there's also Starry Wisp, which is now the druid damage cantrip, which is like a 60-foot range. You attack with your wisdom modifier if you're a druid. It deals a d8 of radiant damage, and when you hit with it, the target sheds light and cannot be invisible.
This is it's a druidic guiding bolt.
Basically like a baby version of guiding bolt.
It's a cantrip version of guiding bolt, which arguably makes it more like a combination of Sacred Flame and Guiding Bolt. Because Sacred Flame is a cantrip, right? But it's a dex save or something like that.
Well,
that's exactly
right. I thought it was more. What's that? Fairy Fire. In Guiding Bolt, can you go invisible? I thought you could still go invisible if you get by Guiding Bolt.
I think it makes you glow, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know. That might be
hold on. I'm gonna Google it.
Place in the middle of the rules. I don't know, because it doesn't say you can't be invisible in Guiding Bolt, but logically, if you're shedding light, I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting because I know Fairy Fire. It specifically says like if you get hit, you have advantage and you can't go invisible. That's cool.
It says thanks. It says you have advantage on this target to the end of next turn, thanks to the mystical dim light glittering on the target until then. So if you want, it doesn't say you can't go invisible, but
logic would dictate you probably can't.
That would be a DM call that you have to be very careful about letting it work once.
Yeah.
Because then it just becomes the anti-invisibility spell as well.
As long as you hit him first,
your next turn, so it's not like a long duration, which is
good. That's true. Different from Fairy Fire, but.
And I would also say that once that hit happens, like the hit happens that has advantage, that disperses it as well. So it's done.
That's true. That's true as well.
So it's either you're not invisible till the end of your next turn, or somebody hits it, and then you can, depending on the one. But yeah, that would be you're right, Ed. That'd be a dangerous game to play.
As soon as you let that one go, you gotta be prepared for that in every fight. Like, he's turning invisible. He's not.
No, he's not.
No, he's not.
That's always the thing. Yeah, because it's like rule of cool is great until people try to abuse it, which most people don't. But they'll just be sometimes where they're players, yeah, that's true. It's like this is something, and so I always qualify like it'll work this time.
Yeah,
like it'll work this time, and then I BS narrate something the next time if it comes up for why it doesn't work.
I saw a Reddit post that said that this DM used a method that he called like a skill gap. And he was like, oh yeah, it works this time. Like, why not this time? It's like, well, last time you used this like cheaty way, it was against a lower skilled opponent. It doesn't always work against higher knowledge people. It's like when you're playing 800 level chess versus 12 or 2100 or 2100 chess. Like, like he sees your move and he's already 3 ahead of you. Like, this is so in the face that like it would get a person who has no idea. But yeah, he would the first one to do this to him. It's like the old, I'm gonna do the fried liver attack. It's like, oh no, it worked against Joe Schmo who doesn't play chess at all. But anyone who has a competent level of chess would never allow this, right?
It didn't work against Magnus Carlsen,
right? So I think that was a cool thing that I saw on Reddit is because it's cool because the guy found a way to let the rule of cool happen at lower levels, but then it kind of gave the chance at the higher levels to be like, oh. Will you try this cheap trick anymore? And now it doesn't work at all because the guy already knows what you're gonna do. He's seen this easy move before. You're not gonna get him.
I think does a really good job of that too, DM wise, is Brendan Lee Mulligan,
who is I'm not familiar with who that is.
He does Dimension 20.
Oh, okay. Right.
And the way he does it is like he'll let you get away with a lot, especially if you hit a nat 20 and you're asking to do a bunch of stuff. His players will ask a bunch, and he'll be like, "Totally natural 20. We're gonna fix." But then he always has a narrative. The way he narrates it, what happens? It's not exactly what the player wants. It's super cool, but it's cool in a way that doesn't break the game. And he's just really good at coming up with like that kind of stuff on the fly. But I've been really watching a lot of him because I love the rule of cool, and I want, especially you guys in my game, you guys are experienced players. I want like to be able to do that kind of stuff and be like, yeah, you get a bunch of stuff because you know how to play the game and you're doing it well, and I want to reward you for doing things well. But I want it to be cool, but in a way that I can control it. And he's really good at doing that without making the players know that he's doing it in a way where he can control it. Right. They think, oh man, I got all this cool stuff. And it even happened in a way that I didn't think it was going to happen, but I was able to do all this cool shit. But
it's also great
to be like, great, you did all that, and now he's going to do this. Right.
Because what it does
break it.
Is it fits the rule of cool into the rationale of the specific situation.
Correct.
So that then
I can't do it again.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's kind of like, oh, something here specifically happened which let the stars align into this. Yeah.
Which feels cool to the player, but it also allows you as a DM to be like, well, that doesn't work here because you're not in a sewer fighting this opponent.
Right.
You're on a skyscraper fighting King Kong. So it's different.
The rule of cool, especially for me, it always felt that it should always be like a contextual thing. Because in all reality, like in my opinion, if you're a good player and you're in a party of good players, you will never fight a combative situation the same way. You might use the same methods, like, oh, the barbarian rolls up, smacks the thing, because that's his mechanic, right? But you should never fight a combat situation the same way. And I think the rule of cool allows that to.
A good DM won't put you in a situation where you're fighting the same exact way against the same exact opponent.
Yeah, but some people still think that way is what I mean.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, we're in this room. Doesn't matter what room we're in. I know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna run forward. The healer is gonna stay behind me, and the wizard's gonna shoot damage over there. And in reality, that should happen in a sense, but you should also be thinking of a different way to combat that, because the room is not going to be the same every time.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I always have different situations within combat, either in the environment or like the combat I just had with you guys, where you weren't the target of like the main thing, so they're not trying to fight you, and it's like that throws us, like, what are you going to do now? They're like harming other people, or they're attacking another person. Like, they're not trying to attack you. So how do you manage that? Or like with the river, I know I did that with you guys a little while ago, like in a different campaign.
The best rule of cool that I ever ran, which I think Ethan was there for, was the campaign I ran my freshman year in college. And it was the highest damage dealing cantrip that had ever happened. Because essentially what had happened is they were on a boat and they were attacked by a young dragon and its rider. And what the sort of setup was is that the rider kind of had leapt off. It was sort of a Gish type, spell sword, and was fighting the party. And the dragon was like hanging on the side of the boat, like clawing, breath weaponing. And what I had was a random table, a D6, that basically had some environmental hazard at initiative count 20 every turn.
Oh yeah,
every round, every full round. So it's like, okay, maybe I roll a 3, so a giant wave rushes over the left side. Everyone there has to make a dexterity saving throw, or they are pushed back 15 feet, possibly off the edge, like that kind of thing. And one of them was, if I roll a 6, a hazard appears dead ahead that you're going to hit on initiative count 20 unless somebody does something to avert. And that's kind of left open what they need to do, but basically someone needs to take their full turn to try and do something. And it was a little more narrative. I was pretty accepting of what it would be, but
sure.
So our sorcerer was a great player. He was playing a dragonborn sorcerer who had shape water, which is a cantrip, right? It lets you, like, one of the things it lets you do is it lets you like freeze up to 5 foot square, 5 feet of ice in a cube.
Right.
And what he asked me to do is he's like, what I want to try and do is I want to basically cast this spell to create it like a small ice ramp in front of the boat that's going to misdirect us just enough so that it like scrapes the dragon. So he doesn't want to like fully avoid it. He wants to do this really niche movement to try and move it over so the dragon gets like scraped off the side. And I was like, that's badass as fuck.
Wait, so what'd you put in front of him? Like a rock?
It was like giant rock.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Like a giant jet of
coming
rock
up out of the river.
Sure. Okay.
And so
he wanted to deviate just enough to slide basically the dragon in between the rock and the fucking
and the ship.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And so
nice. Very nice.
What I told him is, I'm like, this is going to be tough to do. And if you roll poorly, there's not going to be any effect. So it'll be basically your turn is wasted. And if you roll, I had a DC in my mind, but then he critically succeeded at the perfect moment. And I'm like, oh man.
You're like, here we go.
And so I was like, it's the highest damage dealing cantrip ever, because it took a quarter of a young dragon's health in one hit. Uh, but it was worth it, man. It was one of the most epic.
How'd you do the damage?
Thing.
Just curious. Because Shape Water obviously doesn't have any damage associated with it. So what'd you do with the rock?
I don't remember if I just kind of came up with a giant dice number and had him roll it, or if I was just like, okay, his leg comes off, there's a quarter of his health gone. We'll just do it like that.
Okay.
That sounds more like what I would have done. Like just
to keep it flowing,
on myself.
Right,
yeah.
right. I was curious if you made him roll for it or anything like that, because there's no associated dice number.
For cinematic fights like that, are you guys? I'm curious. This is the kind of a DM thought, because I'm this way, so I'm curious if you guys run your games like this. Like, if I'm doing a cinematic fight and one of the players is like, I want to do this thing, I am willing to do, like, give up everything, movement, like bonus action. I'm willing to give up everything to try to make this one thing work, even if it's not quite in the realm of like the ability or spell that they're doing, but it seems cool to me. I'll be like, yeah, it will take your entire turn. You will not be able to move. You will not be able to do anything. Sometimes I'll even be like, you lose your reaction for this round. Like, you are concentrating completely on trying to do this one thing that's slightly out of the realm of what it technically is able to do. I'll be like, you can roll. It's going to be really hard. And you have to give up everything. And it's a high DC, but I'll let you do it if you want to try. Do you guys do that, or do you not play that way?
I've never had that exact scenario. But it would depend on what and how, and also like, because for me,
I know it's contextual. I guess I just didn't know, like, I have a lot of players who play by story, not by. They're not as good at being tactical in a battle. They're more like, I want to continue, like, how the story's going.
Yeah.
And even in battle, that kind of they lean into that, where they're like, I want to do this thing.
They're less mechanically inclined, right?
Him, but like, I'm
open. I'm open to it for sure. Yeah. It would be what I would probably do in that. So for one, I would probably have that only be something that could happen in narratively impactful moments.
Yeah.
And I would also maybe even limit it. I would turn it back on the player and be like, why is this something that you're doing now? And, which would lend itself to perhaps these moments being more in narratively significant, beats for a particular character. So it's like, I'm doing this because this is the person that killed my family. This is what's going on. This is why I want to push to the next level right now. And that's probably what I would lean into it. That's kind of how I would maybe think about it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I'm open to that.
Yeah. Funny enough, I can actually tie this and the rule of cool together, because Ed did the coolest rule of cool thing that I have done as a DM with the natural, like 2 back-to-back natural 30s. Got him off of like a death row sentence and a divine intervention and a multi-class change. That was the rule of cool. I basically was like, you know what? I'm just gonna let that, like, this is Ed's like last give. I'm gonna let this one roll and see what rides. And I just happened to have a D30 on me, and I was like, you know what? This is a pretty high number. Like, why not? Handed it to him. Rolls a D30. I was like, all right, so now I have to, like, the die don't lie. I have to do something. And I was like, all right, so I start we start the whole like angelic intervention moment. And then I'm like, I can't remember what that next roll was for, Ed, but it was something.
I left all my stuff, and I kind of asked him, like, is there something that you can give me that I can use to do your work, kind of seeking out a weapon.
Yes.
And then nat 30.
And then nat 30, the weapon ask. I was like, oh, damn it. So yeah, it was super cool. Like, it was a cool moment, and it was a cool rule of cool. But I think that kind of plays into mine, is like, I like to see the result almost before I do like the full narrative thing. I haven't had anybody ask me for like a full concentration thing. It's more of like a they want to see if they can get something from nothing, and then the roll will kind of build towards that almost.
Cool outside of combat, way more impactful and better.
Oh yeah,
players out there. Rule of cool, a DM will be 9 times out of 10 way more willing to do rule of cool outside of combat
snaps
than they will inside of combat.
Yes, if it's narrative and thematic, your chances go up dramatically. Dramatically, so they go up.
And it's just as cool to do it outside of combat from a narrative perspective than it is inside of combat. And the rule of cool within combat can be something and can be a mechanic that you can utilize both as a DM and a player, especially if it's impactful moments like this guy killed my whole family and this is the culmination of my arc. Yep. Okay. Well, then maybe we can work something out.
Yeah.
But like 9 times out of 10, a DM's going to be like, you nat 20'd on it, but you're going to do damage. And that's your That's your boost, is that you get to double your dice. Like it's not an automatic, I get to do anything I want.
Right.
Versus outside of combat, if you roll something high and they make a roll, I'm way more willing to make something cool happen for you.
Also, DMs, I think, are much more okay and much more adaptable often. This is at least true for me. Is like I'm much more okay having the quote unquote balance of my narrative being slightly disrupted because of a high roll, where it's like, okay, they get a piece of information that I was planning on giving them later. Then it's like, oh, they're gonna nuke the boss in the second round of combat. Like I think because it and in part because I think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe some players like this kind of feeling of like I could see it being fun of like defeating the boss much more quickly than they should have.
But you will. The thing I would say about that is me as a DM and other people as DMs, and this is something players who have not DM'd need to realize. I make my encounters where if everybody in the party rolls super well, you're going to nuke that guy most of the time. Like I balance it to where I'm working on averages. So if you roll average, it'll probably be 3 or 4 rounds of combat. If you roll bad, you could die. And if you roll really well, you're going to drop them in like 2 rounds. And that's on me. And sometimes that sucks as a DM when you're like, damn, they rolled like 4 natural 20s in the first 2 rounds of combat. And this guy's
an hour and a half to fill.
Yeah, now I have an hour and a half that I have to do.
Fudge it every time. Double his health. Don't let them know. Nope. Never let them know.
I don't do all that. So your reward for rolling well and being cool is you drop the guy in 1 round. He does 1 spell off, and then he's dead, right, or whatever.
I'll also tell you something.
Versus like outside of combat, like you were saying, like I'm much more willing to be like, you rolled super well on that investigation check. You find this thing that I wasn't expecting you to find now, but now you have more information than you would have. You know. That's just an easier sell for me.
And a point on that, Jared, you mentioned kind of changing the health pools.
Budget. Always budget. I'm not going 2 rounds. My bad. My boss I built up for an entire arc. I don't care.
So that's
I've worked too hard for this bullshit.
What I tend to do on the other side of it is I'll write them to have a lot of health because I know what the players can dish out. And have ways of mitigating damage. But like thing I've because I used to in my younger DM days, behind the screen would occasionally fudge a dice. You know, it's like, okay, the boss hasn't done.
How could you? I knew you fudged it. I was knowing the whole time. I knew I got screwed a couple of those combats.
The dice had been shit, you know.
It happens, yo.
Bjorn lands a stunning strike, and
that's right. I know I did it.
Yeah, he did succeed. Oh, sorry, dude.
Where did these legendary resistances come from?
But that is something.
And
4 layer actions. Why not? Fuck you. That's why.
That's something I'll occasionally do if there's a mid-level fight.
Dude, those layer actions come out of nowhere too.
I don't do layer actions, but occasionally what I'll do where it's like it doesn't feel like the boss is really impactful and then just something crazy lands is I will give them one instance of legendary resistance to keep it. That is one way that I sometimes do it, where I'm like, okay, so this is just going to debilitate the entire fight.
But I feel like that's better than fudging a dice, right?
I don't know. Like, it feels the same to me. I'm not gonna lie. It feels the same. A fudge is a fudge. I don't feel like there's any higher priority tiers of fudging.
But I don't do that often, and it is only when it's oftentimes where I'm like, it makes sense for like there was, a fight. I don't think this came up in this fight because I didn't fudge in Legendary Resistance, but this was with my horror game, and they were playing like an Avatar, the god of darkness, and they were trying to fight him. And like, I don't think I put down that he had any legendary resistances, but like, if I got into the moment and he failed like a really important trade, I'm like, well, he probably should have like a resistance.
Well, now that we're here, he might as well.
Well, especially because one of our players who's an avatar had a legendary resistance. So I'm like, okay, if I didn't write it in, like, it makes sense that he should have
That's
one.
That's just funny, though. I love that. In the moment, like, well, now that we're here, and he's already fucked this dice roll up, we might as well just throw it on there.
I started rolling dice in front of the screen, and this is like for like important checks, like a check that's going to kind of, I mean, kind of the same thing. And I'll tell you what, the dice have the best control of the narrative. Like, I kid you not. Like, every time they've done it, like it's worked out in such a way to be really well. So, believe in the heart of the dice or whatever, but it's, I did that throughout this entire like 2-year campaign. I did not fudge anything the entire game. I didn't fudge damage. I didn't like the only way I would quote unquote fudge is sometimes I would have a play, have the boss maybe do a play that's slightly suboptimal, but explain why they're doing it. Like if the party's really getting their ass whooped, and it's like, oh, you're not going to attack the downed wizard twice. You're going to go and attack the fighter. Oh, it's because he damaged you most recently. Like I'll have him. That's more how I balance a fight. If it's going poorly, is I'll have the boss make explainable suboptimal plays.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like for me, coming at it from like both my parents are. My mom's like she works with a lot of like situational awareness and things like this, and one of the things that like, and my dad was in the military, and he's like the number one thing when you're in the military is if someone's downed, especially in a firefight, you're already looking for the other people who are shooting at you. You're not looking at the downed guy, right? So like whether he's like dead or not, like you're not looking at that. You're in a firefight and you're trying to protect yourself. So
yeah, very true.
Somebody even has a modicum of intelligence, he's not going to attack the downed wizard because he doesn't know if he's unconscious or dead. He just saw him get hit and fall down flat.
It depends though, because if you're playing a certain bad guy, which I've done these before, and I've had like one of the Avatar, the god of darkness, he and his lackeys were like go for the throat, and it's like that's maybe part of it, but then there's also like the double tap, which is
yeah, but I'm saying like it's an easier pitch to the players to be like that's why he's attacking the fighter because the fighter's hitting him. So he's going to hit the guy that's hitting him,
exactly
versus
right.
Like,
though this guy was scummy. Yeah, it was the most intense fight actually. If I could relay this for a moment, because he opened with a level
by all means.
He opened with what has actually probably become my favorite level 9 spell. Not the most powerful, but it's my favorite. I think it's called Psychic Scream. What it is it can target I think up to 10 creatures. And you make an intelligence saving throw, which nobody except wizards have intelligence. And if you fail, you take 14d6 psychic damage and are stunned. And you get to repeat the save on the end of each of your turns. There's no time limit on it. It is simply that you are stunned.
If a target is killed by this damage, its head explodes, assuming it has one. That's beautiful.
Yep, that's exactly right. So it's like it's so I dropped that round 1 from the big bad.
It's only there's no verbal. It's only somatic. That's crazy too.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So I had done this. I had actually set this up because the guy they were going after, they had discovered like a carriage full of people who all had their heads blown up. And so they were tracking this guy down. And Psychic Scream is a really not known spell. Like everyone knows Power Word Kill, everyone knows Wish,
right?
Like nobody, everyone knows Meteor Storm. It's like no one knows Psychic Scream. And I dropped that on them the first round of combat, and everybody failed. Ooh. And the way that I play rules as written actually with saving throws is that you can't crit. So there's no critical success, no critical failure. And his DC was 21 on intelligence. Our cleric had a -1 intelligence. He literally could not succeed the save until like we had our artificer who had high intelligence, obviously, who succeeded. Right. And basically artificers have this particular ability called Flash of Genius, where as a reaction, a certain number of times a day, they can add their intelligence modifier to somebody's saving throw.
Oh, right,
so
right.
Basically, they were just waiting for him to land with like a 17 or an 18 on the dice so that the artificer could Flash of Genius him. And
I thought he was going to do like Bless or something. Or is it Bless? That does the saving throws. Bless. Yeah, well, he's a cleric, right? You said. Yeah,
but he was stunned. And there's
yeah, that's right. He was screwed.
And there's no time limit.
Right.
So he was screwed. It was fucking crazy. Yeah. And so that was like but that fight was, he didn't, I recall now, he didn't need legendary resistance because he started with that. So the party was like on the ropes the entire fight.
From the get-go. Yeah, that's pretty rough.
And what we had done is that there was so one of our players had been, the cleric player actually, had his character took a step back for a little bit, and there was story reasons behind this, and he came in with like a rogue, and he and I kind of talked about what we wanted the rogue to be, and we decided that he was going to be one of the assassins sent after one of the other player characters for story reasons. So this was like a big betrayal moment when he kind of turncoated as an assassin and worked with this guy that they had been chasing to try and kill the party. And that was the character who like was double tapping everyone. And it got crazy because at one point there were 2 party members full dead at the same time. And they swung it back like incredibly. Like just dice rolls falling correctly, having the Flash of Genius at the right moment and getting the cleric back up.
What number was the party? 5?
So there were 4, but they had a under Tasha's. There's a rule for companions, which are kind of like leveled characters, but a lot more bare bones. So they had the cleric's companion's a wolf, who was kind of like the same level champion fighter. So it was 4, but really 5.
Okay. That's not. I mean, half the party being down isn't impossible, but it's still a hard swing.
Well, not down, full dead.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty hard swing still, but not impossible. But it's not.
They pulled it out, luckily. But it was a tough fight. That was probably the second hardest fight. The hardest fight was at the very end of the campaign. It was the second to last combat. And man, they got so lucky because they did Heroes Feast the night before with the Bard. And one of the things Heroes Feast does is it makes everyone immune to poison. And the boss had like a perpetual cloud kill aura around him. So like, poison damage and other stuff every turn. And then there was a bunch of stuff that was noxious. I forget, noxious cloud, which, is poison. So like that spell just saved the entire party because they were like, it was really close at the end. But if they'd had that cloud kill going off, it would have just been.
Yeah, they would have never even gotten close with all that.
Yeah, but
did they know ahead of time that they should have been trying to get away from poison, or was it just pure
pure luck,
pure happenstance that you picked.
I had built it before. They had just leveled up. The bard picked Hero's Feast as the spell. Happened to cast it because they were like, wisdom should be useful.
Yeah,
Save their ass. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And we, I'll tell you another rule of cool too. Because at the very end, there was a character who everyone thought was dead. He was a companion of the party for a while. He was the protege of one of the player characters, and he'd kind of betrayed them. He basically kind of devoted himself to evil, and this is not by the rules, but we thought it was for a second, and I ended up letting it ride. But we had a fighter who was Rune Knight, and one of the Rune Knight runes is that if somebody is attacked, you can redirect the attack to somebody else,
right?
Within range.
Mm-hmm.
And so what he did, it was super epic because the boss, like the final boss, the one after the one with Cloudkill, he had this dark sword, and he basically went to kill the cleric, and the thing with his sword is it prevented resurrection, so it would have been lights out for the cleric entirely. But then the Rune Knight's like, I want to activate the rune and have the attack target the boss. So basically the dude, like, I forget the name of this, where you just put the sword down the spine, but he just did that to himself with the cloud rune. Great. Fucking awesome. Anyway, that was a tangent, but some fun stuff.
It's okay. We're allotted those. We're allowed to do this. This is a prime example of what we are allowed to do. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, one of these episodes. What I'll do is I'll bring out my notebooks and we'll just have a 4-hour podcast where I'll just go through the entire events of the 2-year campaign.
Ethan and I are just gone for how we just get up and leave, and he's just Ed reading his notes for hours on end.
I dropped a prophecy 6 months into the campaign, just like I'm hoping.
Oh, dude, that is something I really wanted to do. I want to do like this. The next campaign I run, I want to drop like a massive prophecy and then just not mention it for like months and months. And then it finally, like the first little gram of it just pop up like session 21 or something crazy. I've wanted to do this for fucking so many campaigns, and I can never think of like a good like time span to do it because they were all so like conflated.
I've been wanting to talk about this. In our group that plays, like you, me, Ed, my brother, Palmer, I kind of want somebody else to also run so I can play, because right now I'm DMing both of my campaigns and I don't ever get to play at all. So if you ever want to do something or start something and we can alternate, I'm totally down with that. I'm just
dude, I've also wanted to do a adaptive version of like a West Marches.
Ooh.
I know, but I'm trying to work out the details of it because like I don't want to set the pace too quick, but I also like the idea of having like 3 people show up for this adventure and then like 5 people for this bigger adventure, and maybe like I'm kind of thinking maybe we run it as like a smorgasbord of like a couple of idiots are trying their luck to start a guild of some variety. So like they're doing like these little misadventures here and there, and like sometimes it's only 2 players and it's like 2 hours of playtime, and then the next one is like, well, we had this, so like I can be like, oh well, next week we'll play with whatever, and then we can get like you or Alan or what a bunch, and there's 5 of you fuckers running around now, and they're like, oh shit, so now it's time for like a bigger guild mission. I've been toying with this idea for so long, and I feel like I can transition it into a campaign. It just needs to be enough of a free flow that I don't hamper anyone else's like campaigns. But I've thought about doing it for a really long time. It's just you have to have kind of a bigger pool of players to do it in theory.
You know what I really want to do?
Pull on.
So
I probably have players we could pull on.
That's what I'm saying. Like that, like that'd be cool to do something like that. Where even if we're throwing in like a pool of 10 to 12 players of just like who's playing this week, and we're like just poof, like there's 6 of us, and the next week there's 2 of us. And
I did a similar one my senior year, because there was one semester in particular that was really difficult. So I just got a group of people, and I'm just like, what's going to happen week to week? If I have time, I'll prep a session. I'll let everyone know. Whoever's
show
available
up. It's like it's like open gym essentially.
I did it as Suicide Squad. So everyone made like evil characters who were in prison running missions to lessen their sentence, and then
right. Yeah, I've just toyed with that idea, but it can get a little like. There's a couple ways I could run it, and I've been toying with how to do it. Like, do I make one of the things I really get stuck on, and maybe we can kind of. I mean, I'm cool if you guys want to even workshop this now, because fuck it.
Sure,
why not?
Welcome to how to work, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the randomness we get into off camera. No, but I was thinking of doing one where it's like, do I want to do it where the PCs form like a council, and that's how all the quote decisions are made, or do I make like an NPC who's essentially me giving out the tasks and then giving you guys like a hierarchy or a ranking? Because I think it'd be kind of cool to have like a weird hierarchy in a way of like, not as a punishment, but like a like Jujutsu Kaisen, if you guys have seen that.
This guy's been on extra adventures, so he might be a level or two higher.
Or something like, where it's like, oh shit, or like you roll into a scenario where it's like, okay, us 3 are level 3, we can handle most things, and then you roll into like, oh my god, it's a platinum level fucking bad guy, and you're like, oh dude, we had to call in this backup or we're screwed.
This guy's in Kakashi's bingo book.
Right, exactly. Yes, that's exactly how I was thinking about it, because you could do it like that, and that'd be cool too, because then you're like, oh, well, how do you explain, because I wanted a way to explain how, as the campaign, like as the West Marchy progressed, right? If you had come to 5 sessions and Ethan had come to 2 sessions, I wanted another way to realize how you two would be interacting in a non-weird, like, I'm better than you way.
I only did this in a one-shot, but I think it would work really well for this. Is it one of the one-shot worlds that I built? You guys may have played in it. I think it was the one-shot with, you remember the ticking clock one where it was like the ice village? And
God, yes.
So what was there is like, you guys were all members of a Monster Hunter guild.
Yeah.
And the way it worked is every person had like a pin that they wore on their vest, and it was a different metal to indicate your ranks. It's like copper, silver, gold, platinum.
Right.
And then it was one of the things that I really liked is once you got to a high level, it was like diamond, emerald, ruby, diamond, like precious metals. And then the idea is that if they're a high enough ranking person, they always have a material component for Revivify on them. That so if somebody comes across them, they're like, oh, we need to get this guy back up because he can help because he's high level. So that was kind of the way that I did it, is that you had ranking systems that were semi based on level. It was like every 2 levels maybe was a different rank. So it's like, or maybe might have been every 3. So it's like, once you get to 12th level, that's when you're like, oh, this is someone who needs to be revivified.
Right. He needs to be. Yeah.
You could even toy with the idea, Jared, of you get experience instead of milestone based.
Like true experience level. Yeah, like true numbers.
If it comes to 5 sessions that I come to 2, he's level 6 and I'm level 3.
Yeah, that it is what it is.
Hard,
right,
man.
Right.
And like, and you can still help as a level 3, and it throws a wrench in, right? Because then now Ed's not only thinking about what do I need to do to defeat this bad person, how do I also keep my lower level party members alive?
Right. That's what I was thinking.
It makes it more fun, but then if there's more people, it also makes it easier to fight the bad guy, right?
Right.
So that balance of like, I need to make sure these guys stay alive because they can get one tap by this villain.
Yeah, and that's what I meant is like I kind of like there were some scenarios that I was gonna like that I ran through my head, And I was like, it'd be like that, or it'd be like, oh, the lower levels stumble into this scenario where they're fucking way in over their head on accident. They thought it was something smaller, but it was like, it's this massive baddie in all reality, so there's fucked.
What you probably need to do to balance it, and you can do this very easily narratively, is, you know, you take a look at what level everybody's at, and then you're like, okay, let's just, you know, spin an example here. We got 4 level 6s and 4 level 3s, just to make it easy.
Sure.
So what you do is you roll up on a necromancer who's got, you know, 10 zombies. So then the idea is, it's like, you know, all the low level guys are like, hey, you guys, they do crap. They're like, you take care of the big guy, we'll take care of the minions. So you basically are kind of running 2 combats in essence, because like the big bad guy is not going to take out the little guys. He's going to take out the.
He's going to let the bomb zombies take care of the little guys. Yeah,
right.
So it's like you would kind of run almost like 2 separate combats on the same map, where it's like one guy's dealing with the high level guys, and then, you know, some minions are dealing with the low level party. Is kind of how you would. That's
actually a good thematic that I'm now thinking about. Really good movies that I enjoy, and that happens a lot. Like the side characters take a bunch of the minions, and the you know, they basically chase the bad guy up to whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good one too. Again, I think there's a lot of good starting points. I think I just need a couple of like, not resources, but like
All Might's fighting Nomu.
Right.
While the 1A is fighting the other villains.
Right. And I'm thinking about, like, the more I think about it every once in a while, the more I'm like, all I think I need to start is just like a couple of, like, not resources, but like pools, I guess, of like, I need like 6 to 10 players maybe. And then like a single like.
I also think you need people to buy in and build characters that they're okay with dying.
Yeah, because I do want to kind of run it pretty harsh. Yeah.
Because you could do
any other way, Jared. From you.
To be fair, it wouldn't be the political side. There'd be a little bit, but it wouldn't be as intriguing. But it would definitely be a little bit of a grind for sure.
You would really need to run kind of bare bones backstories, like, oh, I was a cleric raised at this temple, and I am off fighting evil. I am a fighter. I was a soldier in the war, and now I'm trying to make money.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't want to feel attached to character. Like it was like the Suicide Squad game. I'm like, create zany villains.
Yeah. And if you like, if people, if we, you know, if we successfully did get through like 5 sessions or something with a variety of players on an average of 2 to 3 sessions or 3 to 4 sessions or whatever it was, and then people were like, hey, I am kind of attached to a backstory, can we work a backstory in? I can definitely do a backstory in surrounding that idea, but it would kind of pivot the West Marches. But I am curious if we could run the successful ones first, because like then you can do side quests even off of backstories.
Like that is, if you're weaving a backstory into this type of campaign, this is something that isn't really done a lot, because I think it has a narrative effect that people want to avoid, but it is often, I think, more thematic for a character to die completing their arc.
Yes.
But people don't.
People hate that though. They hate it because they want.
Well, you can't do it, because I think a lot of people are okay with dying, but then they're like, well, it wouldn't work narratively because they want to keep playing the game.
Right.
For me to create another character to put into the pre-existing group who has no reason to help the other people.
Right, but this way you're all just in the same common bond of its own. Yeah, you're just you're just the new guy, or you're whatever.
You're buried with a rock over your grave, and they move on to the next adventure.
Yeah, they put you in the giant. They burn your body, as is tradition. In the pyre with the guild, you get a little medallion on the wall of lost fallen brothers or whatever. Like the CIA carves stars into the wall, and then boom, you roll up your next guy, and you get to be the new guy. And like that's the other thing that I also thought about too, is I'm cool with the backstory, but it definitely would have to weave in. It'd probably be a side quest or a couple of side quests into a definitive end of an arc.
And it's kind of cool too.
Even if you don't die, it'd be like, oh, you solved this, but now you're still just a member in the guild.
Narratively, you could kind of cooperate through the game to create the backstory in a certain sense, because it's like, it's like, oh, you remember from your time at war. Oh, you remember this. Oh, you remember this.
Right.
And then at a certain point, you introduce the bad guy. He's like, oh, this is the guy that killed your commander.
Mm-hmm.
And then that the player who's been playing this character is kind of bought into the so you don't even need a concrete backstory necessarily. You can just create a
loose setting of whatever you had. Yeah.
And then you as the DM are able to introduce things that become narratively significant to the player.
Yeah. As long as people like I think Ethan, you were saying, as long as they buy in, or someone was saying, as long as they buy into that kind of style of play, I'm okay letting a backstory run through an arc of a bad guy. But I think people would have to buy into either the fact of, like Ed was saying, if your character dies and that's the definitive end of the arc, you should be somewhat satisfied with that and just roll as another, a different character into the next realm of or chapter of the guild or whatever. And or if your arc with your backstory ends and you don't die as a character, I would even give you the option of like, oh, well, I feel like this arc has ended. He feels satisfied. He wants to retire from adventuring. I'll make a new character. Or you just continue playing on, but knowing your character will never have another backstory connection because the next 3 arcs will not be about you. And I don't know if some people are okay with that buy-in or not, because it feels, I don't know how to like word it, but some people just aren't okay playing D&D that way. And I understand, but like, it does feel, I don't know what the word is, like not railroady, but like, I think some people are going to be put off by the idea that like, if they get chosen first for their backstory connection, they won't buy into the rest of the campaign if it's not solely connected to their character. But I don't know if that's like, if I'm analyzing.
I'm telling you right now, my character for this is his sole desire in life is going to be running the guild.
I'm glad you've already made a character in the past 10 minutes.
His whole goal is he's wanted was to be a part of this guild, and his only goal is to become like the greatest guild member.
Dude, if we're playing 5.5, I have an idea for a character.
Oh, this is definitely going to be 5.5.
I have an idea for
I'm waiting for someone to do the divine smite javelin thrower from 60 feet out.
What I want to do is I want to play
I would thematically play that too, as it's not the thing that's glowing. You just get hit with a javelin, and then like a bolt of comes out and just like absolutely annihilates you
from 60 feet out.
It's like a
God smacks you.
What's the word for like the target for a missile that the laser locks onto? Yeah. It's like that's exactly what it is. You throw the javelin, and then the god's like, the javelin.
That's like targeting laser.
The clue. It's called a clue. The thing you look through. It's a clue.
That's right.
A javelin clue. Yeah.
But what I want to do, this character could be somebody in depth, but I also think this would be really interesting. Is I want to play a character, because I think I've talked about this before. I really like characters where it's creatively done, that you were previously really powerful and somehow lost it.
Mm-hmm.
And my concept is that I play like a really old man who was, well, get this, it's interesting. He was previously like a barbarian or something, or a fighter who had been, part of a particular group who had like saved the world a few times, like your classic D&D party, but then he got old. And so he's,
back in my day, I would have handled this dragon immediately. I wouldn't have let the way this king lets this kingdom rot. And you're like, what is this old man talking about?
He cuts a deal with Cthulhu so he can have warlock powers and keep adventuring.
Back in my day, this never would have stood.
His physical body has decayed, but now he's using kind of the energy of his personality that he cultivated, being a champion.
Just a crotchety old man complaining about the good old days the whole time. You young kids, you guys don't even know what it was like to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yeah. Everyone's like, what is this old guy yammering about? He's like barely above level 1. He's like not even powerful enough really to have like 2 spells.
That's how I would play him in this campaign. If he was in a more serious campaign, I would talk to the DM and be like, hey, could you start dropping hints about like some great warrior.
Yeah.
Just tie in some great warrior from the past that just people know, like kind of like, Koth the Bloodless, right? It's like, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm not gonna lie to you, Ed. If you choose to play, if we do this,
have you read that book, Jared? Have you read either of those? The third one,
The Name of the Wind.
The Name of the Wind.
No. Do I look it up? Do I look it up on? Is it on Amazon? Can I order it?
Yes.
Buy it now.
Buy it right now during the podcast. Right now.
Jared.
What's it? Name
This
of
is
the
one
Wind?
of my greatest. This is one of my greatest feats of my life. I told Ed, "Hey, you should read this book. It's amazingly good." And I was like, I would almost put it on par with like Tolkien-esque fantasy. And he went, right, okay, well, give me the book and I'll be the judge of that. And he came back to me and was like, dude, this is amazing.
You got Ed to eat his own words? Now that is a rare feat. That might be the highlight of your life. That might be it. That's pretty high order right there.
I don't eat crow often, but I did that time.
Patrick Rothfuss, Name of the Wind. Okay.
Yeah, dude, it's that and Order Hyperion too.
Oh, they have the whole. They have the whole set.
Yeah, it's superb.
They have the 3-book set. It's the Wise Man's Fear. Was it Slow Regard of Silent Things? Is that what that says?
So the Slow Regard of Silent Things is a side shoot book. So he's writing the 3rd book of the trilogy right now. He's not finished yet. So the first one is The Name of the Wind. The second one is Wise Man's
Fear. Oh, okay, I see.
And then the Slow Regard for Silent Things is an offshoot of one of the characters.
I haven't read it actually.
Okay.
Is it worth reading? Slow Regard.
I haven't read it either actually. I need to.
It covers Bast, I think. So
I think it covers Bast and the little girl too that he meets. What's her name? Dang it! It's been a minute.
I don't know. He also wrote The Narrow Road Between Desires. Is that a different one? Is that a one-off?
That's a short story. I think.
Okay.
But it's in the same world.
Oh, sure. Right. Okay.
But it's Name of the Wind and the Wise Man's Fear are both.
I've added it to my cart, and I will get what was the other set?
Hyperion. By Dan Simmons.
By Dan Simmons, you say? Dude, the best part is all these are free with an Audible trial. I'm about to just like fall asleep listening to someone narrate these books for me.
There you go. Yeah, I haven't listened to the audiobooks, but
I wonder if they're good.
500 pages. I turned it over in a day and a half, which like I'm not a slow reader, but that's unusual. Like reading that fast.
Reading that quick in anything is just, I mean, finding the time to do that is still pretty impressive.
It was literally a Saturday and I bought it. I bought it on Friday. Right. It arrived with Amazon Prime on Saturday morning. I finished it Sunday night.
Wow. But you just read the whole day then. You couldn't put it down.
Essentially, yeah. I could, and I couldn't. I just wanted to know what happened, and it was so great.
And it's 1 of 4. It says it's 1 of 4 series.
1 of 4. I'm into the second one right now.
Are they all called Hyperion, or is that the first just book name?
The first book is Hyperion. The series is called the Hyperion Cantos.
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay,
but Hyperion is the first book, and then Hyperion Fall of Hyperion, excuse me, is the second one.
And I see that. Okay, cool.
And then like Endymion, I think, is the third one, and then Rise of Endymion is the fourth.
Yeah, that's what it says. Yeah, the sets here.
Yeah,
I'll give those.
The second one is different. I'm not enjoying it as much, but it's more sci-fi and more political in a sense where I'm less interested. You might really like it though.
Is it Dune-esque? I need to read Dune. Have you read Dune?
I didn't like Dune.
The book you didn't like?
I didn't like it. I've tried reading it about 8 times.
Everyone says
never
it's really
finished
good.
it. I'm an elitist when it comes to style.
Oh, really?
Like when it when it comes to like style, and he's just like I don't know. Herbert's like he's not very gifted with his prose. Like his writing's not his writing's
yeah.
not beautiful, and it's like if you read Hyperion, you'll be like, God damn,
it's like eloquent
beautiful.
writing. Yeah,
like it is so gorgeous. Some of his stuff, and like it's Herbert kind of falls into the sci-fi trap, I think, which Herbert falls into somewhat, is that the characters are sort of just complementary to the world. Like the real thing with sci-fi is a cool world.
right?
And you have stuff happen in it.
Yeah.
And Hyperion is very different because like the entire driving force are these characters. And it's still good sci-fi.
But it's not totally reliant on.
But it's not reliant on the world.
Right.
It's almost like the world is like a backdrop. Like the world's not the focus. And like a lot of the things is too, it's like he doesn't explain a lot of things that he talks about. You kind of pick up sort of what it means, like through the course of it. But it's like there's not a scientific, like one of the things they talk about are what's called fat lines. It's like a method of communication. It's almost like a direct wire across space that's really, really quick. But you're not given any explanation of what it's never said that that's what it is. It's just you pick up what characters are referencing.
Yeah, you use context clues to build the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's one of those, I don't know what the word, there's a word for it, right? I think literary, I don't know how to, whatever that word is.
Literally.
Yeah. Where it's like everyone in the world knows the thing they're talking about, but the reader is like outside of the knowledge. Like when, what's that prime example of this? Oh, when they make the Kessel Run joke meme that's in Star Wars, where it's like, oh, the Millennium Falcon did the Kessel Run in 10 parsecs, and they never tell you like what an actual parsec is, and it's even wrong because a parsec isn't a measure of time; it's a measure of distance. So it's like it's just like the whole thing, or what the Kessel Run even. Well, they explain. I think they explain a different. It's a smuggler route, but I can't remember when they explain it. But
you can pick up what it is.
But you know it's impressive because everyone's like, holy shit, it did the fucking Kessel Run in 10.98 parsecs or whatever the fucking number is. But like 12. I don't know what the 12. Okay.
12 parsecs.
All right, Mr. Knowledge over there. But I mean like that, I don't know what the term for that is, but that's like super cool to me when world building people or like world building moments like that happen. Where someone says something and everyone's like, "Oh shit, that's super cool," and you're like, "What? Like, what the fuck is this?" And the watcher doesn't know, but everyone in the world knows, right? Quote on, like you're almost out of it.
D&D games,
yeah.
Like when they come to a new city and they're like, "So and so just did this thing," and everybody's like, "What?" Yeah. And then they're like, "Who is so and so, and what is this thing that they're doing?" And I'm like, "You don't know.
You don't know, but everyone else cares."
It's like one of the like tropes of like a lot of media, and when it's done well, you don't notice it. But it's like one of the ways that you can make exposition feel natural is having a character who's out of place. And like the prime example of this is Harry Potter, right? Harry Potter he was not exposed to the wizard world at all. So everyone has to explain everything to him, which is a great tool for the author to explain things to the audience.
Yeah.
Hyperion has nobody who's on the outside.
He doesn't care at all. He's like, I don't care if any of you know.
He's like, go fuck yourself. Figure it out.
Fuck yourself. Figure it out.
There's nothing that's like explained explicitly.
That's awesome.
Now you might get more details on it maybe later. It's like a more thorough explanation of what's happened. You know, whatever, maybe. But it's
you idiots who didn't figure it out in the first 8 chapters. Yeah. Here's a review.
Yeah,
but it's not even anything so overt as that. Like it's like just.
That's how I feel though. And I was like, it
reminds me of, what is it? Is it you seen the Emperor's New Groove Disney movie? When it's like halfway through, he's like, whoa, stop! And he pulls down the sheet and he starts drawing on the screen of the movie. And he's like, this is fun. This no likey, no. He crosses it out. He's like, all right, now that we're good. Now that we're all square, start the movie again. Yeah.
Like
I love that
so much.
I love it though, in like a visual sense. In a literary sense, it sounds terrible.
I hate exposition that is just thrown in there, and you see this in so many movies nowadays. And like one of the ones I was watching, I just recently watched Those About to Die on Peacock, the one about the gladiators.
Oh yeah, is it good? I was looking to see if it was good. The reviews are mixed.
It's okay. I think it does a good job of sort of showing the attitude and environment of Rome, and generally the writing's pretty solid. But like, there's just this one part where it's like one of the main characters. There's this guy from his childhood who's reappeared with a vendetta, and there's just this one part where he's like, the guy who's there, like normally they don't, it's not this a lot, but he just shows up and he's like, you remember when we were boys in this place in the service of such and such? Do you remember how we did this and how there was a fire? Do you remember this? And it's like, oh God.
I hate that trope. That's my least favorite trope. The person from the past with the vendetta. I hate that trope.
Okay. I'm okay with that, but I'm like, why the fuck?
I hate it.
Just like walked up and punched the guy, and you're like, why did this guy just punch this guy? What's going on?
But it's like, it makes the writing so clunky the big thing is like, you notice this when you're looking for it, is it's like people explaining things to people who already know it, and you see this especially.
Oh my God, yes.
In like cop procedurals, like you'll notice when someone's like, you know about such and such. Well, of course, but remind me. And it's like, okay.
And you're like, all right.
So
yeah, you're like, stop it.
Exposition.
You're like, stop it. You had no idea.
Because the really, really solid writers will sort of make you get it without having to resort to that. And like, it's an easy out to have somebody who's on the outside who needs it to be explained to them. But at least that looks natural.
Yeah, like what's an example of that? Like, when like there's like in a cop show when there's a lawyer who hooks up with the detective and they're like, hey, I just picked up so and so's case. Like, okay, like let me walk you through where I'm at. Like, at least that is more like a little bit of more of a catch up than, oh, do you remember this case I just pulled out of my ass? And they're like, oh yeah, about the girl. And they're like, right, about the girl. And then you're like, all right, here we go. And then 5 minutes of exposition. They read through the file and you're like, oh my God, dude. Like, no one interacts this way. Like, this is not a regular interaction.
See, you notice it a lot. It's actually really amusing when, like, in first episodes where somebody's like, oh, hey, brother. And then they never call their brother again. It's just to establish that the two are brothers.
In the very beginning, yes.
It's like, well, you remember what Mom used to say when we were boys together as brothers.
Father's been looking for you, brother. And you're like, okay. And then it never mentions any other familiar relations ever again.
Chris and John for the rest of the show. And you're like, cool, okay.
Yeah.
Please be consistent.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm fine if someone's like fucking Hulk Hogan. Just, hey, brother.
Yeah. Hey, brother. To everybody. I understand it.
Yeah. It's like they call their brother, but like make that a character thing instead of like you just shoehorn it into.
No, it's always the very first thing.
You know what? I can probably figure out that you're brothers without you telling me that you're brothers.
Yeah. And the other thing in like, so Those About to Die has this part at the beginning where it's like two sisters talking. And it's just like the dumbest it's like a framing conversation. It's just like, well, you've always been this way, you know?
Oh my God, dude, that's so bad. Like, no one speaks that way ever. I love it though, but everyone's like, when we were, back in the day, and you're like, here we go. You're like, here's some exposition.
That's the thing that's unnatural is just like, that's not the way you talk to your sibling.
Right.
Like, you never go up like it's very rare.
You don't have to expose the inside jokes because that's the reason they're inside jokes is because you both already know that it's an inside joke.
And I can't figure out why writers can't grasp this concept. It's not
writers are shit.
It's because they're dumb.
Writers are just trying to get paid.
I could write a better fucking Witcher show than we got.
Don't even fucking get me started, dude.
That was brutal.
Don't even get me started on that goddamn show.
They had material to work with. They had such good material to work with.
You know what I could have written better? The Acolyte. I could have written The Acolyte.
It's hot garbage. So
I didn't even finish it. I got like 6 or 7 episodes in.
I got like 2 episodes.
Wait, is this the Star Wars one? Yeah. I didn't even watch it. I didn't even try. I knew it was gonna be trash. I didn't even attempt. Fuck them.
One of the actors, like, so he said 2 things that are just so stupid. One is just stupid. The other one is like, you and the writers clearly don't get Star Wars. The first one he said, he actually said this twice. He said, And when Anakin destroyed the Death Star,
you're fired.
Like,
you're fired. You're fired. You're fired. Right?
Yep.
You're fired. Fuck you.
The other thing that he said something like, the thing that I love about Star Wars is that it shows that there's not really good and evil. It's just a matter of perspective. And I'm like, you just missed the entire point of everything.
It literally tells you it's good and evil. It says light side and dark side. It literally tells you what's good and evil.
It's the most Eastern yin yang, sharp divide, black and white thing. And
they're literally space Nazis. He kills people just because they talk out of turn to him.
They believe in the wrong thing, so he slaughters them. That is he's a literal space Nazi.
Yeah.
He runs an evil empire. He has no moral authority. He just slaughters whoever talks shit to him.
And like the whole point of it is like the Jedi are like evil, you know, like it's, and like I'm fine with political commentary, like, you know, say what you want, but I'm like, okay, Jedi are, you know, stupid cops who, you know, abuse people,
right? Like what's the different perspective?
like what's the change? What the fuck? Like you're like, okay, so the cops beat people and killed unarmed people, like you.
Yeah, well, I don't understand.
And I'm like, you know, like, you know, make political, like, there is such well done. Like, I think that, like, you know, like the boys, they're getting heavy handed now, but like their kind of subtle critique of like, you know, like Donald Trump and MAGA, whatever. I'm like, I respect it because like it's subtle, and now they're getting heavy handed with it. But like, I'm like, if you want to critique something, you know, do it in a way.
It's called satire.
Right.
Like, make it satirical. Don't just make it like a one-to-one metaphor that's obvious and doesn't fit in the universe.
Bro, that's insane.
It becomes preachy. Yeah, and nobody likes that.
Wait, so who was in charge? It wasn't Favreau in charge of the Acolyte then, right? Because surely
Leslie Headland, I think her name was.
Who the fuck is that?
Harvey Weinstein's assistant.
Oh, great. Yeah, she can be trusted, of course. God, dude, it's like putting speaking of Nazis, that's putting Himmler in charge. Like, oh, well, it's not Hitler. So, you know, it'll probably be better than the last time. Same administration, but maybe a little different. That's ridiculous, dude. What are we doing here? Like,
it was absolute trash.
Who's making these creative decisions? I gotta know.
And then
Kathleen Kennedy, dude.
All the actors were getting interviewed, and they were all like, "So everybody's like, so would you pick the light side or the dark side?" And they're all like, "Picking the dark side." And I'm like, "You're all playing a bunch of Jedi.
You guys are all evil. All of you are evil people."
It's like, obviously,
you would slaughter whole planets.
You want to be,
dude. The Inquisitor canon is crazy too.
Sith Lords do.
Did they have Inquisitors?
Who destroyed a sun and killed a whole solar system with the Force.
Were there?
Yeah. On that side?
Were there Inquisitors in the Acolyte? I didn't watch it, so I have no idea.
No, Inquisitors. It's a prequel. It's like 100 or 200 years before Anakin.
Oh, before okay.
It's like
dude, the Inquisitor canon, like the expanded like Inquisitors, dude, they slaughtered people looking for Jedi. They like did not care at all. Like there's a Jedi in this town, they just leveled the town because they could and no one could stop them. It's like that's the side you choose, the dark side, the side that just levels places because they're like, you know, it's like, oh well, there's one bad person in this town of 1 million people, and you're like, level it.
So the dumbest I've seen screen caps of this. I haven't seen the actual episode because like I said, I stopped after episode 5 or 6. But
right.
Like the final episode, like the big moment is that this one person who's been pulled from both sides, her lightsaber's half blue, half red.
What?
I'm like,
that doesn't even make any sense.
You missed the point.
That's not even how. It's not a fucking slushy. It's not a slushy. You can't do that.
You also can't do that because the reason the crystals are red for the Sith is because they bleed.
It's because they bleed them. Yes. Oh my god.
Bleed half your crystals and the other half is still okay.
This is not an icy from Speedway. You cannot just put half red, half blue in it and have it make sense to people. This is not the way the story works.
And for green stands, if you're a green stand, you're just right out.
Yeah. Wait, wait, what?
Yeah. The green lightsabers.
The green lightsaber wasn't even in there, so it's like, yeah.
They just took out an entire color of the lightsaber.
It's so simple because they have the Jedi Guardians, right? And the Jedi Guardians are like from the lore. They use white lightsabers.
Terrible. This sounds like a terrible show.
So Jedi Guardians have white lightsabers.
I gotta watch this show now.
Dude, I watched. There's this fight scene. It's okay. Like, it's just okay. Like, if you want to watch a great lightsaber scene, just rewatch the end of Revenge of the Sith or the end of Phantom Menace. Like,
just watch Qui-Gon get diced up and then Obi-Wan come in. That's like the best scene anyways.
He doesn't really, I mean, he gets diced up a little.
Yeah.
Like, he's doing pretty well.
He's doing all right. Yeah, he's doing okay.
This long fight scene, and it's like, it's one Sith versus like, 8 or 10 Jedi. There's some pretty cool moments. There's some decent choreography. Because, the Sith just fucking slaughters them. Because the whole point is that the Jedi are sort of, they've become lazy, I guess. Which I'm like, okay, sure. But then it doesn't make sense why they're also lazy during Empire, Revenge of the Sith. But
they've been lazy for 200 years.
I'm like, you have Jedi Guardians, and then you have red sabers and blue sabers, and it's like, why are they fighting why is there no difference here? That would be nothing. Like, choreographing the way that Guardians fight as being different and more defensive than the other ones would cost you nothing. Like, you just have to just make the Jedi Guardians.
He's really upset about this, if you can't tell.
The whole point of Jedi Guardians is that they are the ultimate defense machines, and it's like they're defenders. Like, and it's like,
he uses the fourth form lightsaber fighting skill, which specifically is defense against blaster fire, and there's almost no offensive attacks, which is why when he fights, there's very little offense.
He switches his form too. He goes to form 2 or whatever.
Did you remember? You remember
when he does the point with the 2 fingers, he does a second form or whatever it is, the other form.
The part where he ends up in Rebels, it's the best moment of Rebels is when he kills Darth Maul. What he does is he starts with this,
and then he goes and then he
changes into
Qui-Gon stance. Yeah.
And this is why it's brilliant, because Farvo knows his shit, is because that's why he tries to do the same move, that hitting Qui-Gon on the head and then stabbing him, but because he changes to that style, but he knows it's coming and then cuts down and defeats him. The whole point is he psychs him out with changing form. And Maul's like, I can beat him in this form because I beat Qui-Gon.
It's like watching Count Dooku fight in the Clone Wars. It's like in the Clone Wars, it's like everyone has such a distinct style. It's like, even if you just saw, Dooku's fighting style is so it's
because so the cool part about that is because Christopher Lee was actually in war and he fought with a sword, and that's where his style comes off. He fights because it's actually a one-handed sword fighting position. Yep. And there's a great I don't know if you ever said this quote. There's a great meme. And it's George Lucas pointing at the script, and Christopher Lee is right there, and he's like, "So you're gonna fight like this, and blah blah." And it's just the meme as Christopher Lee leans in, and he goes, "Have you ever killed a man, George Lucas?"
Well, the great moment is where
he said that in Lord of the Rings.
Well, the Peter Jackson. No. What happens is Peter Jackson was directing, because in the extended cut, Saruman gets stabbed by Grima Wormtongue.
Right.
And what Jackson was directing him with how to be stabbed. And
he wanted him to shout out.
He's like, that's not what it's like when someone gets stabbed.
That's not what someone sounds like.
That's not what someone sounds like.
When you get stabbed, it's just a breath leaving their body. And he explained it, and then Peter Jackson was like, "How do you know this?" He's like, "Because I've done it before."
He was a special forces commando. That's why. Yeah. I just looked it up. Crazy.
Directly from Charlemagne.
Allegedly,
and he did a metal band. He was in a metal band
named Charlemagne.
Named Charlemagne.
Yeah, Charlemagne.
Nice.
But yeah, so but my point is like Jedi Guardians, like they're not really a thing in the prequels because they kind of faded out. But Jedi Guardians, like their whole thing is they are the ultimate shields. And it's like, so this guy is just going to get cut down. Like they look the same. Like there's no differentiation between how the Jedis are fighting based on their style. And it's like a Jedi Guardian should be like an impregnable wall, and it should be a real feat to kill one. And you could really establish how badass this Sith is if he cuts through 4 Jedi Guardian
that are actually putting up a decent fight of solid defense.
Yes, it's the same. It's the same critique of the fight of Darth Sidious versus like Plo Koon.
Oh my god, dude! Don't even get me started. They massacred my boy Kit Fisto in one slice. A Jedi Master who has countless battles, and Kit Fisto just one swing and they get him, and I'm like, man took down a whole government in the cannon. What the fuck?
So they had to actually retcon it because of how stupid that was, and I somewhat like that because one of the guys, the
couldn't
guy
believe
with,
how they massacred my boy.
But the guy with like the tentacles that hang down, kind of with the little horns at the bottom, he's like the second one that just gets cut down right away.
Oh,
so he's a psychic. He's literally a psychic. Like his whole, but the thing is what they describe, and it's kind of cool. So that scream that Sidious does is an actual Sith move that actually severs temporarily people around them's connection to the Force. So the reason why he cuts down those 2 Jedi so quickly is because he's actually severed their connection to the Force, so they have no defense. And then Kit Fisto, who lasts a little bit longer. This is in the novelization of, I think it's in the novelization of one of them, but of Revenge of the Sith. But the reason why he gets distracted is because he senses Anakin entering the temple. And he's like, what the fuck? Why is that Anakin and why is it so evil? And that's how Sidious kind of is able to get inside his defenses. But it's a terrible fight because like you don't like until he's fighting Mace Windu, you're like, this isn't even a fight.
Sassy
like,
Tin.
It's just like
Sassy Tin, the guy with the horns.
Yeah, Sassy Tin. Yeah. He's a psychic.
Yeah.
Like he reads people's minds. He knows what they're gonna do. That's his whole shtick.
Legendary warrior status among the High Council, slaughtered. Kit Fisto, legendary master of the first form, slaughtered. I'm just so upset.
I'll tell you what, man. We all love seeing Kiadi Mundi getting just.
Oh, me. I would want. I go back every once in a while, maybe every 3 months, and I just watch that on a loop and getting shot in the back.
So Ayla Secura getting massacred like out of nowhere. Plo Koon was like the second best.
Close bros, dude. Close bros. Yeah. Diced up by a fucking pawn. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, dude. It's
ridiculous. Ayla Secura, dude, I don't care, but hilariously, her commander, Bly, never hits the broadside of a barn in the entire canon of like the Clone Wars. And of course, as soon as he drops her in one tap, you're like, all right, like, what are we doing here?
What makes me so mad about Ayla Secura is because like this is EU, but like there's a whole comic book series that is her because she was Quinlan Vose's Padawan.
Yes.
And Quinlan Vose is like my favorite Star Wars character to ever exist. And because he's just got this like back and forth pull between the dark side and the light side. And like he's always fighting it. And he ends up on the light side. But like Ayla Secura has like this whole rivalry with Aura Singh that's like not really touched. Aura Singh is like one of the she's the white face with the antenna, the bounty hunter who works with with Jango Fett. She's a whole thing with Ayla. Like they're rivals, and there's just a great comic where Ayla beats Aura but doesn't kill her. And like it's superb, and Oh, yeah. Quinlan Vos has been relegated to 2 episodes of the Clone Wars because of Disney. I'm so like they're good episodes. He's cool. God damn it.
That's amazing.
The Force Tracker. That's such a cool ability too.
Yeah.
Which one?
The tracking.
He's a Force Tracker. He can track.
Oh yeah.
He can track.
Yeah.
Dude,
he's a ranger.
There's just there.
Yeah.
God damn it.
He's a ranger. If Rangers were actually good, D&D, Wizards of the Coast. God damn it.
Facts, dude. It's just, dude. It's just wild how much there is to do in that universe and how badly everyone has just. They're like, oh, how this can't possibly fail, and then they pick the worst variant out of the worst arc, and they're like, how could this possibly fail? People love Star Wars. No, they love Star Wars. They don't love random non-kinetic bullshit. Like what?
They are pushing an agenda so obviously that it becomes not even enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, it's just wild, dude. Because they do like it's just wild to me how they like. How do you look at someone's success, like Favreau's success of the Obi-Wan series and the Book of Jango Fett series, and how do you look at those shows and then you turn and you go, you know what, The Acolyte, that's on par.
To be fair, Obi-Wan was kind of ass.
I liked Obi-Wan's first 3. No, I think I'll take the whole series. I'm okay with that.
That fight scene with Darth Vader is so good.
So good.
No. There were moments that were superb, but I'll tell you what, it makes it a big problem. Why does Leia not know Obi-Wan? Why has she not met Obi-Wan? like there's this huge, instrumental part in her childhood, and then she just has absolutely no connection to him when he dies. Like that's crazy to me.
Wait, what?
She did. She was saying, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi." She knew who he was.
Yeah, she knows Obi-Wan the whole time.
But the previous lore to that is that her father knew Obi-Wan from the Clone Wars, which is set up in the prequels.
Yeah, it was kind of a plot. It was a plot hole.
And it's a plot hole now because then like
wait, sorry. What do you when you mean how does she know Obi-Wan? What do you mean when he rescues her? How does he know her?
Well, here's more my point. I'll make it better. So you see the relationship of Leia and Obi-Wan in the Obi-Wan show.
Yeah.
And then you see how Leia reacts to Obi-Wan Kenobi's death. It causes an issue of like, it doesn't match up. It's like, oh, the guy who saved my life and was a huge, impact on my childhood just died in A New Hope. And she's like, doesn't give a shit because it seems like she's never met him in A New Hope. And so
I think that's an acting decision though, because like canonically she knows who he is and she knows his importance the whole time.
She knows of him. She hasn't in the old canon. She'd never met him, and that just adds an issue to me because I don't know. I did somewhat like the general arc of Obi-Wan where it's like he's kind of defeated like at the beginning, and then he gets to a point where he's like has some new hope with Luke, and that leads into A New Hope.
A New Hope. You don't say.
But I generally I didn't enjoy it a lot. I did not like the secondary villain. I forget her name.
Oh, there's third sister.
Yeah, third sister. I also really don't like that Disney has just made surviving lightsabers a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like before Disney took over, and even in the Clone Wars, it's like if you catch a lightsaber to the chest, you're dead.
Yes, you're just gone. Like even a slash, you're done.
Yeah, even a slash, you're done. That
is true, dude. Have you ever seen the videos? The people who do the 3D renders of like canonically accurate lightsabers cutting through like clone troopers and stuff, dude, where they just like it's like VR almost, and they slash and like the limb just goes flying off the person's body and they collapse on the ground, and you're like, oh my god, like it's almost a little terrifying in a way, because like
the most terrifying thing, bro, is that so canonically the reason why lightsaber wounds don't bleed is because the lightsaber is so hot it cauterizes the wound.
Right.
So when Jango Fett gets decapitated, it's instantly cauterized, which I watched a video doing the science of this. He would have been alive for like 10 to 15 minutes while his.
Oh my God. Because his neck's instantly cauterized.
Yep.
Jesus.
So it's basically a immensely painful, slow suffocation as his blood runs out of oxygen. Ooh. So Mace Windu went to the dark side on that one.
Mace Windu was always on the dark side. I stand by that statement.
Well, Pod, his fight style literally draws on the dark side. That's why he's the greatest Jedi fighter of his generation.
That's why he's purple. See, now again, you want to combine red and blue? Oh my God, I wonder where I've seen those color combinations before. Oh wait, there's a purple lightsaber. Not half red, half blue. Like, that is ridiculously stupid. That's like it's already you're splitting hairs. You're literally splitting hairs. It's already existent. You're trying to make a new thing.
Or just yellow, because like the gray Jedi are like the what are they? The gray Jedi,
the ones that use yellow. Yeah.
What Ahsoka turns into, where it's like we're neither light side nor dark side. We're like
the
force
gray,
users.
just the gray force users or whatever they're called.
Like, it's right there.
Yeah, but even in the Clone Wars, I'm pretty sure the Jedi Temple Guardians used yellow lightsabers, didn't they?
White. Those are the Guardians.
Were they white?
They're white versus yellow, which I think is.
Are you sure?
Are you sure? I think it's yellow.
I think yellow is the Guardians and white is the gray, because white heals red crystals and they become pure.
Yeah,
that could be right. That could be right.
Yeah. Right, the yellow lightsabers are the Temple Guardians, and the white ones are let's see,
gray Jedi.
Are gray Jedi.
Okay, so other way around. But
still same difference.
The other thing too,
you got to purify the red. You got to purify red crystals. So
to get white.
Henry and I, my brother, we recently rewatched the Batman, the 2022 one.
Mm-hmm.
The one with Pattinson, right?
I thought this before. I am now thoroughly persuaded that I think it's the best Batman movie.
Really?
I do. I really think it's the best. I think it's the best one. I think it's the best Gotham. I think it's the best portrayal of Batman. I think it's
over the Christopher Nolan ones.
So Christopher Nolan's a weird thing, because I think they're phenomenal movies. I think they are really, really bad comic book movies, which is not what he was going for. But like what he's doing is not Batman. It's like Heath Ledger's Joker is perhaps the greatest villain in all of cinema, but he's the worst Joker because he's not really the Joker. Like, he's something else that is excellent. It's amazing, but it's not Joker. Because I think so far the best Joker has, probably been Jack Nicholson, if we're talking about accuracy to the comics and fitting in. Because like Nolan's doing basically like a political civil drama with Batman, whereas the Batman,
he makes it really film noir almost.
Yeah, but in a way, it feels like it doesn't feel like a superhero movie, which is fine. It's not what he was going for, and they're great in their own right. But I think like as far as like superhero movies, like the 2022 Batman is like the best.
Yeah, Nolan's is more of like it's more of a redemption, like come to terms with yourself kind of movie than it is like a superhero movie. Because like in all reality, like what 90% of all those three movies, he's not really doing anything like crime fighty. He's just kind of like running around, doing some cool stuff like here and there. But then you spend an entire like scene where he's just wandering around his mansion, like schizophrenicking out. He's like schizing out almost.
Yeah, and it's like the new Batman. Like Henry and I were talking about this because it's what they're doing with it is it's a new Batman, right? He's keeping a journal. It's his second year as Batman, right? He's very new, and there's actually an arc that Batman undergoes, which doesn't really happen in any other Batman movie, because the whole bit is like right at the like his opening monologue is about how he's the shadows, he's the fear, he's vengeance, And there's this scene right at the beginning where like he beats the shit out of these thugs, and the guy that he saves tries to hand Batman his wallet. Like he's terrified of Batman. And the whole bit is that as the movie goes on, he realizes like, no, I can't be the shadows. I can't be vengeance. I have to be hope. I have to be the light in the darkness for people to look to. I can't just be a source of fear. I have to be a source of hope. And I have to not just fight bad guys. I have to save people. And that's the change that he undergoes through the movie, where he finally realizes what he actually has to be, especially contrasted with Riddler, who is kind of doing exactly what Batman thought he was doing, where he's just eliminating the corruption and the evil, but he's taking it to such an extreme that when Batman sees it, he realizes like, no, this isn't what I'm trying to do. This, I have to change. I have to be something different for the people in the city. And it's, oh God, it's brilliant. I'm so excited for the next one. And the Penguin show, actually. I'm pretty interested.
I need to watch that one then. I really didn't give it much because I thought it was going to be another. I've gotten really out of tune with these superhero movies because they keep showing me the same shit. Like every Spider-Man's exactly the same. It's like one villain and like it's a little twist. Like I guess to me the third. What was the third one? Different. What's the third Spider-Man with the other two with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield?
No Way Home.
No Way Home. For that, dude, that felt like total fan service. That's all that movie looked like to me. It was like, I mean, I'm okay with it because it's kind of like a recognized, well-deserved thing. But like superhero movies, if there's gonna be full fan service, dude, I'm not trying to spend time watching them. To be honest,
normally I'm not okay with it, but I thought they did it real justice.
I mean, I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying it was true fan service. Yeah, it was true. It was just true fan service. No, and I was worried. I was worried the Batman movies were going to be exactly the same.
It's not. It's really not. And it's. I think that he plays. I think what we're going to see too. If you haven't seen it, I won't.
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't yet.
Well, I guess I've given you an idea of the thematic changes. I think what we're going to see is because like the whole bit is that Bruce Wayne is like a total recluse. And there's one part where he talks to like, he shows up to like a memorial service as Bruce Wayne. And there's literally a crime boss there who like sees him and he's like, Bruce Wayne, the only man who's more of a recluse than I am. Like he's totally withdrawn from everything. And that comes into play that the Riddler basically tries to kind of pressure him into like he tries to put pressure on Bruce Wayne as being like this symbol of everything wrong with Gotham. So I think the next movie we're going to see both Batman being like the symbol of hope, and then also Bruce Wayne kind of coming out and actually being an active role in Gotham too. So I'm hyped. I think it'll be great. But I would definitely watch it. It's long. It's like 3 hours.
Yeah,
but it's worth it. Really good. But so we didn't really talk about 5.5, as it turns out.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
We hit the diatribe button and kind of went for it. But we can just, you know what we can do? Because I think the two we said we didn't talk about were Bard and Druid. We could just tie Druid into the Primal Magic episode, talk about the new Druid, and then go into Primal, and then I guess we can put
we'll just throw Bard in there.
We'll just Bard with Divine Magic.
Bard works in anyway. That's like their whole shtick.
Yeah, he's a master of none, so he'll be a master of no Primal.
Yeah, but hopefully you guys enjoyed us ranting about Star Wars and talking about superhero movies and talking about science fiction books that we like and fantasy books that you all should read. So glad you all could tune in. Hope you I don't know, stay frosty.
we gotta work on that one.
Stay frosty, dude. Stay frosty, ladies and gentlemen.